This is your annual Sean service to wake up. I think every time I'm at the pulpit, I'm saying the same thing in a different way. I promise next time it's going to be different. I've already decided. But I guess this is my life's purpose, is to wake people up and remind you that as hard as the days are, that life is still really beautiful. So I'm going to talk a lot today about a topic that's really close to my heart called awe. And awe can happen in many different ways and places. But one example that really comes to mind that I think a lot of you might even have experienced is every winter in February, which is really, my birthday's in February, and typically I've not liked February because of the cold. But lately, it's not been terrible. It's been pretty mild. And we started a tradition several years ago to go over to Lancaster and look at the snow geese migrating over there in the park, with tens of thousands of snow geese. Has anybody, raise your hand if you've gone and witnessed this? So the thing about this experience is if you're patient, you know what's going to happen, right? You know that those tens of thousands of birds are going to lift up at once, miraculously, and there's a sound that happens just a split second before they lift up. And it's almost like the air is being sucked out of the earth in that moment. Next time you go, you listen for it. So this to me is a moment of awe, when those birds rise up and it just is, there's like a gasp in the crowd of the people who are watching. It's amazing. It's a wow moment, right? It's a moment of awe. So for fun, I'm going to start down here on the floor to you, a moment that you can think of where you were like, wow. It could be anything. It could be a ladybug that was crawling on the ground. I know you know of something. You want time to think?
Yeah.
Time to think? Okay. All right. You want to go? Okay.
A rainbow after a big storm.
A rainbow. Yes. And raise your hand if you have one that you want to share.
Seeing my children for the first time when they were born.
Ah, yes.
Lightning bugs.
Wait for the mic so that people on Zoom can hear.
Lightning bugs at night.
Same as Deb, newborn baby, looking into their eyes, like watching them kind of take the room in.
Seeing a 1965 Mustang Fastback.
I love it.
The awesome silence of the Grand Canyon.
Lisa's getting her steps in.
Yeah, seeing Mary come down the aisle on our wedding day.
Oh, he does so many awful things, but then he does that. I think Steve has one too.
As a teenager, going sailing on the Chesapeake Bay and mooring at some little inlet overnight and sleeping out on the deck watching the stars.
Oh, beautiful. Steve.
Watching and listening to the waves coming in on the beach at high tide.
The cry of the hawk as it patrolled out front in front of our garden.
The thunder of a hurricane that I experienced when I was about 6.
Got another one?
Singing in the National Cathedral.
Joanne's, I'm sure that you can all relate. Like, I had triggers of my own moments of awe from, certainly, I was just in the Caribbean the other couple of weeks ago, and I'm still trying to transplant myself back to that. But Joanne reminded me of a moment of awe last summer when I was at my family moved to Georgia 7 years, or almost 20 years ago. And I was in bed, it was dark, and the room has all these windows. And I'm looking out in the dark, and it looks like sparkles. And I'm like, what in the world? And the more my eyes adjusted, the more I'm like, thousands, millions of fireflies. I mean, I could take video of it because it was that prominent. It was amazing. Thank you for those stories. The service is over. You understand. You just did it.
I know how difficult it's been for people to believe the light of my joy has not been dimmed by cancer. I don't yet know how to explain it except to say I stopped waiting for awe to find me and made it my job to find it. By the end of our lives, if we don't say wow 8 million times, we don't get into heaven. What purpose could I have that's greater than building my goosebump collection? Last night, I lifted my head to the northern lights and they flew 6,000 miles to see me. I'm on their bucket list. You are too. We are on every miracle's bucket list. Chemo turned my memory to dust, and I could still look you in the eye and speak 4 hours and 16 minutes of poems I wrote and memorized, all of them titled Death is Not a Finish Line. The gun goes off at the beginning of the race for a reason. People think I've gone mad because I'm not mad at my life. I haven't lost my mind. I know exactly where I left it. I've simply learned to think with my gratitude, pray with my pain, love with everything I could ever and never lose. I know why that's hard to believe, but what kind of poet would I be if I could only make hard things beautiful on paper?
And is the author of our reading here today, and that was them. They learned about 2.5 months ago that their cancer is incurable. They are a great role model to me as somebody who is showing up and being awake. And their story is amazing. If you Google it, you'll find it. So this is called Acceptance Speech After Setting the World Record in Goosebumps. And it's a little long, so we're joint reading. I wasn't by any means a natural, was not one of those wow hounds born draw-dropped. I was tough in the husk, went years untouched by rain, took shelter seriously, even and often, especially in good weather. My tears like teenagers hiding under the hoods of my eyes, so committed they were to never falling for the joke of astonishment. When I was told there were 7 wonders of the world, I trusted the math, believed I had seen none of them. Of course, beauty hunted me. It hunts everyone, but I outran it, hid in worry, regret, the promise of an afterlife or a week's end. And one day in a red velvet theater in New Orleans, I watched Maya Angelou walk on the stage, 17 slow steps to the mic. She took a breath before speaking, and I could hear God being born in that breath. My every pore reached out like a hand pointing to the first unsinkable lotus in the bayou of the universe. I'd never felt anything like it. Searched the encyclopedia for the feeling's name when I got home. Goosebumps. Afterward, I thought, I can do this. Started training morning to night, crowbar swinging like a pendulum at the wall of my chest, tore the caution tape off my life and let everything touch it.
Allen Iverson on the television in his first season with the Sixers, crossover sharp as a V of sparrows flying through the paint like Michelangelo's brush, 333 goosebumps. My baby sister, sober for the first time in 13 years, calling to tell me she just noticed our mother's eyes are green. 505 goosebumps. One day, my friend scored tickets to a Prince concert, tiny venue. I was right behind the sound booth. Prince's entire band that evening, women. At the end of the show, the sound person turned around and whispered, "He didn't play one song on the set list the whole night." I live on stages. I know what it's like to scratch a plan, but not the whole trip and still arrive to your destination 200 years before time. 421 artists formerly known as Goosebumps.
But that's just the fancy stuff. Some of them came from simple facts. It rains diamonds on Jupiter, 189 goosebumps. Blood donors in Sweden receive a thank you message when their blood is used, 301 Nordic goosebumps. One night in Ann Arbor, my friend, still undiagnosed, could not uncurl her fingers to strum her guitar, so she sang the chords instead. It was the first time in my life I'd seen pain become an instrument. 10 dozen goosebumps for each and every note plucked from the string section of her refusal to silence her dream.
After that, nothing in the world was gray. Even the movie of my past was released in color. The oldest man in my hometown could not get to the door to listen to our carols, so we went inside and sang at his bedside instead. 24 boots on the front step catching snowflakes with their tongues, 776 goosebumps. At one point, everything started doing it. A sincere apology, 221 goosebumps. An enemy's love poem, 222 goosebumps. The moon rising over the Continental Divide. My girlfriend and I thought it was a car driving off a cliff, and suddenly, nothing in the world was dying. You ever felt that? A split second when nothing in the world is dying? 888 goosebumps. And the next day, I sharpened a tiny axe so I could split the seconds myself. Too much lives in a moment not to feed it to the fire in the heart, slow.
A Missoula treehouse filled with candlelight, 143 goosebumps. The octopus documentary, 54 goosebumps multiplied by 8. The biggest dog in the shelter hiding behind a teacup chihuahua, and the woman who came to adopt a cat, taking all 3 of them home, 1,012 goosebumps. There's no escaping the magic now. Beauty caught me and never let me go. And the thing about the world record is, if someone breaks it after me, and they will break it after me, I will love that so much that without even trying, I'll break it again. So one day, a couple of months ago, I was standing in a long line at Target, waiting patiently for my turn in the self-checkout area, when I had a moment of enlightenment. Rather than spend my time scrolling on my phone, I was breathing like I always do. I do most of my meditation and breath work in lines with busy people in crowded places. I don't people well, I often joke. I'm an introvert and a homebody, and I've worked from home for 10 years. Going to Target is one of the few routine outings I do other than church on Sundays, which is also something I've had to relearn over the past year or so. So anyway, I'm in line, breathing, when I hear a loud, boisterous laughter rumble through the front entrance near the dollar section of the store. I look up and I see a tall, white-haired man wearing a red t-shirt, and my first thought is, he's a really happy Target employee. Upon further examination, though, I realize he's not an employee, but an elderly special needs gentleman, a customer actually, and he's walking with this young, handsome man, and the two are walking so close together, so slowly, and everything the younger man does or says draws the biggest laugh and smile from this older man. Their joy of being together was infectious. I was mesmerized by their connection. They acted as if the rest of the world didn't exist. That moment, standing in line at Target, opened my heart and woke me up. Suddenly, empathy oozed out of my pores, and I saw the world and its people differently. I was in awe. This was an everyday moment of radical amazement, a moment of awe. It was a moment that made me feel more alive than I normally do. Einstein is attributed to saying there are only 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. When I'm at my best, I'm living by that latter philosophy. When I move in a rush and a big hurry, I see very little as a miracle. But when I slow down and look at people as if they are a miracle, as if you are a miracle, suddenly I see miracles everywhere. I call these moments in Target of enlightenment, but they are perhaps more so a moment of self-transcendence, moments when you rise above yourself and you see yourself in the world differently, when you realize it's not about you, but about the larger collective. The truth is, I have these moments possibly more than most, which is why I'm always up here talking about this, but more fleeting than I would like. I live for moments of awe. It's in these moments that I feel into Abraham Joshua Heschel's words when he said, "Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed." Radical amazement? I think this is the word Andrea Gibson meant when they could only say goosebumps. Getting to goosebumps, though, takes effort. We don't always nail it the first try. Like Andrea said, for a long time, beauty hunted them. It's everywhere. Look around, look up, look down. And yet, how can we find so much awe when there's so much suffering in the world? There's suffering even in this room right now, in this beautiful sanctuary with the lush garden-like campus in a third-class city in central PA, where struggle after struggle happens to our neighbors just a block or 2 or 3 down the street. Let alone what's happening right now as the people try to survive in the war zones of Ukraine, or the heartbreak unfolding for the parents of all those people who died or were injured in mass shootings this past week. And how can we forget the climate crisis that has people sweltering in the south, can't leave their homes for the smoke in the north, and running out of water in the west? So much suffering. How do we give ourselves permission to turn away from all of that suffering and put a focus on joy and being connected and feeling whole? How do we find awe in all of this? Well, that's what I had to figure out about 1.5 years ago. As many of you know, in August of 2021, my otherwise healthy husband, who's not here today because he already heard this sermon at Unitarian Universalist of Gettysburg, he was running up the massive hill, doing sprints up the massive hill near our house as part of his, I call, ridiculous exercise routine. When he returned home, he started to feel a little odd and strange, and he told me that, and I said, okay, well, do you want to go to the hospital, or do you want me to call 911? So I drove him to the hospital, and we learned he was having a heart attack, and he went into 45 seconds of cardiac arrest while I was in the hospital room with him. It was very traumatic. And a couple weeks later, he had some post-heart attack anxiety, ended up back in the ER, he got COVID. It was a hot mess. It was a stressful, challenging time in our lives as we also were parenting our twin 15-year-old daughters. And there was this shock of a major health event. And it felt like everything was turned over, and I felt like I had lost my spiritual connection, and I didn't know how to get it back, and I was worried. So I turned to my work in positive psychology for some help, and one of the things that I love to do is a 30-day practice. So at the time, once things were a little more settled, I decided to focus on an all practice, a 30-day all practice. I was also reading a book at the time called The Art of Aliveness by Flora Bowley, so I ended up calling my 30-day practice Audacious Aliveness. Flora Bowley, a painter and artist, says, aliveness means reaching into the vast depths of our human experience, not shying away from what we find there and being brave enough to say, I can be with what is and I can choose again. I can create beauty out of sorrow and find meaning in the madness. I can be the alchemist of my own life, no matter what cards I've been dealt. Awe is actually one of 10 positive emotions that have been identified by psychologists and researchers, along with joy, gratitude, love, and even pride. Some researchers believe that awe-inducing events may be one of the fastest and most powerful methods of personal change and growth. Awe is self-transcendent, emotional response to an object, an event, a person of extraordinary quality. It is an intense sensation of sometimes fear, admiration, delight, and surprise. The objects that evoke awe could be extremely beautiful, unimaginably vast in size, or exceptionally significant in any other way. Awe can be intriguing and yet powerful experience. You feel it when you are fascinated by a spectacle, exceptional and extraordinary. When people feel awe, they may use other words to describe, like wonder, amazement, surprise, wow, delight, transcendence. And they also report feeling happier, more generous, more grateful, more positive overall. They feel smaller in the collective, and that time slows down. I'm sure you can relate to time slowing down when you see something amazing. My experience to that point in 2021, before the heart attack, was that awe was something that just happened to you. Like you could just be walking along and suddenly, wow, something amazing would happen, like 10 chipmunks showing up on your walk in the morning, which happened to me this morning. You can't plan that. So I thought this might be a bit of a challenge to do a 30-day awe challenge. What am I going to do? I just live in York. I just live in suburbs. But I do have a little teeny hiking trail. It's not even really a hiking trail. It's more like a little path that has woods that I can walk to in the morning. And so I began seeking out radical amazement daily, starting with the morning walk, going out of my way to turn madness into magic and sorrow into beauty. If you want to feel more alive, you get to do that today, right here. You can start by looking around and seeing all the miracles walking around you. But you can also begin by taking a new way home, one where you can see the vast farmlands or urban life unfolding, a deep focus on something unusual, new, or looking at something familiar in a whole new way. An audaciously alive practice begins with one really important practice: paying attention, being present. I was fully mindful of that laughter in the Target store. I wasn't on my phone, I wasn't scrolling, I was just in the moment. And that kind of presence creates moments of audacious aliveness. It's that sacred moment when you catch a child's smile or a moment of kindness that you witnessed and you are able to be fully present for. It's slowing down, it's breathing, it's meditation. And then it also takes curiosity, questioning. I didn't just hear the laughter and move on. I was wondering, what is their relationship? Why are they so close? Why is that young man with this older man? And what are they doing? What are they shopping for? Anybody else do that? Because I'm like, you don't want to be in my brain. So, we can do this everywhere and anywhere. We can do this. We can find awe and create audacious aliveness when gardening. I love to watch bees climb into the blooms in the backyard, and I could sit there for hours watching this. Anybody love to find joy and awe through gardening and plants and flowers? I think we can all agree on this one. Music. Any music fans? I know Donna is. Donna and I share that. Music can transcend, right? Favorite songs can take you into a whole new place. Seeing somebody perform can also, somebody who is very good at what they do, also brings back memories, triggers memories of times of awe as well. Writing and spiritual texts, poems like Andrea Gibson's, if you haven't found them on TikTok or YouTube or I think even on Instagram, seek them out because it's constant reminders of how to stay awake. Nature, we've already talked about that. Creativity and art, I know we have artists in this room. You can find all in looking at art, making art. And then, of course, your own spiritual practice, meditation, yoga, pulling tarot cards, and getting that, wow, that's what I needed today. Pets, anybody have pets that awe them? My dog, well, we have two dogs, but one is the cute one and the other one is the old one that's on my nerves. But the little one just learned to catch popcorn in her mouth. And so I'm a little obsessed with this, right? It's like every time, like she gets a lot of popcorn now. The universe, the stars, the moon, the sunrise, the sunset, constellations, the clouds, rainbows. It's all a source of awe. It's all a source of audacious aliveness, and it's just outside your door or just inside your door. You don't have to go to Grand Cayman to see the Caribbean Sea. You don't have to go to Lancaster to watch tens of thousands of birds migrate. It's really here. Look around. Little miracles sitting next to you. So now it's your turn to take this little bit of wisdom to stay awake and to turn small, imperfect days and moments and suffering into something beautiful, into something powerful. How can you find the energy and positivity with your own audacious aliveness practice, something that gives you a respite from the suffering of the world or the suffering that you are experiencing in your own life? How can you seek out more goosebumps?
Now is the time in our service that we extinguish our chalice, so we will read these words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
How green the trees are, so green they grow to the sky. The leaves and birds that live there are just learning to fly. There's so much life around here, it makes you feel so good. Now I know why God made such a beautiful world. There's water all around us. Let's swim with the fish in the pond. The pier goes down to the bottom. The bridge goes swinging beyond. There's so much life around here, it makes you feel so good. Now I know why God made such a beautiful world. We can cross the bridge together when the bells start to ring. Find shelter from the weather until the birds can sing. Canoes are by the water. Let's take one out and have fun. Watch out for mosquitoes and wear your hat in the sun. There's so much life around here, it makes you feel so good. Now I know why God made such a beautiful world. Now I know why God made such a beautiful